Nia stood before the mirror, her dark veil covering her face, the familiar weight pressing down on her shoulders. Her family had told her to wear it ever since she could remember. The villagers spoke in hushed tones when she passed, but they never dared ask why she wore the veil. They knew the story, how the curse had been passed down through her family, how she was the one who had inherited it. Don't take it off, her grandmother had warned her when she was just a child. The curse will follow you. It's not a story, Nia. It's the truth. Her mother, too, would often remind her, if you ever take off that veil, disaster will fall upon us all. You're the last of the line. Nia had never questioned it. She lived with the fear that haunted her family, the curse of beauty and ruin. Yet, as she grew older, a longing stirred in her heart. She dreamt of walking freely through the village, of feeling the warmth of the sun on her face, of seeing the world without barriers. But the veil held her captive. One day, she whispered to herself, one day I will find the courage. The village was alive with the sounds of children playing, women gossiping at the market, and men talking about the day's work. But for Nia, there was a wall between her and the world. She could feel their eyes on her, their curiosity mingled with fear. Aunt Kemi had caught her once, standing by the river and staring at the reflection in the water. "Why do you wear that thing, Nia?" she asked, her voice low, almost too soft. "I have no choice," Nia replied, her voice distant. "It is a curse, Aunt. I cannot remove it." Aunt Kemi sighed, her gaze flicking to the village elders, who sat by the fire, muttering amongst themselves. "You may think it's a curse, but it's also your shield. You are different, Nia, and that is something only you can understand." Nia lowered her head, her fingers brushing the fabric of her veil. If only she could understand what made her different. If only she could see herself as they saw her. One afternoon, as Nia wandered through the village, a figure approached her from the distance. A stranger. His eyes were warm, filled with curiosity. He didn't look away when he saw her, as most did. He didn't flinch at the veil. Instead, he smiled. "I've heard of you," he said, his voice light but sincere. "The girl who wears the veil. I've always wondered why." Nia was startled. People didn't ask such things, especially not strangers. She hesitated, but didn't turn away. There was something in his gaze that made her feel as though he wasn't afraid. "You can't see me," Nia murmured, almost to herself. "I am hidden. I must be hidden." The stranger, whose name was Kofi, smiled again. "I don't need to see you to understand. Everyone hides something, Nia. But what if you're hiding more than your face?" Nia's heart skipped a beat. What was this stranger trying to say? How could he see through the veil? But before she could ask, he turned and walked away, leaving Nia standing in the sun, her thoughts racing. The next few days were heavy for Nia. Kofi's words lingered in her mind, refusing to let go. What if you're hiding more than your face? She asked herself that question over and over as she walked through the village, the weight of the veil pressing harder than ever before. The villagers' whispers seemed louder, their eyes more penetrating. Nia couldn't shake the feeling that she was trapped in an invisible cage. In the quiet of her room that night, Nia sat by the window, watching the moon rise over the horizon. She thought about her family, her mother, grandmother, and the generations before her. They had all lived with the curse, all carried the burden. But now, it was her turn. Could she break free from it? Could she live without the veil? As she touched the fabric again, she whispered to herself, "One day, I will know the truth. One day, I will find my freedom." Days passed, and Nia couldn't forget Kofi's words. She kept wondering about him, about the way he looked at her, as though he knew something she didn't. It was a strange feeling, one that she couldn't quite understand. One evening, she saw Kofi again, sitting near the fire with the elders. He seemed to be listening intently to their stories. Curious, Nia approached, her veil flowing around her like a shadow. She sat at the edge of the circle, careful not to draw too much attention to herself. "I've come to learn about the village's history," Kofi said, noticing her. "Perhaps you could tell me about your people, about the customs." Nia hesitated, unsure if she should speak, but then her voice came. "The customs are old. My family's curse has been passed down for generations. We are doomed to never show our faces, or we will bring tragedy to those we love." Kofi looked at her for a long time, his expression unreadable. "But what if you're wrong?" he asked gently. "What if the curse isn't real? What if it's something you've been told to believe?" Nia felt a pang in her chest. Could it be possible that the curse wasn't real? She had never thought of that before. The following morning, Kofi invited Nia to walk with him to the riverbank. The air was cool, and the sounds of the village seemed distant. They sat in silence for a while, watching the water flow. "I once knew a girl in my village," Kofi began, his voice soft but serious. "Her family believed in a curse much like yours. They feared the same things, lived in constant dread. But when she grew up, she removed the veil of fear they had wrapped around her." Nia turned to him, her breath catching. "What happened?" Kofi met her gaze. "She lived. She found freedom, but she had to confront the fear that was holding her back. Fear of being misunderstood, of being rejected. It wasn't the curse that controlled her. It was her fear." Nia's heart thudded in her chest. Could it be true? Was the curse really just fear? The next few days were filled with turmoil for Nia. The thoughts of what Kofi had said gnawed at her. What if her entire life had been shaped by fear, not by the curse? What if she had the power to change her destiny? One night, as she sat alone in her room, she gathered the courage to reach for the edge of her veil. The fabric felt foreign in her hands, as though it had never belonged to her. Her fingers trembled as she pulled it away from her face. She stared into the mirror. For the first time in years, she saw herself, not the girl behind the veil, but Nia, the woman she had always been. But as her face was revealed, she heard a voice from outside. It was her mother, calling to her. "Nia, what are you doing?" "Put it back. The curse." Nia froze. The fear crept in again. But this time, it wasn't just the curse. It was the fear of her own doubts. Could she truly live without the veil? Was it too late to break free? The next morning, Nia walked to the river, the veil still in her hands. Kofi was there, waiting for her. "I've done it," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I've taken it off." Kofi smiled. "And how do you feel?" Nia looked out over the water, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. "I feel free." Kofi nodded. "The curse was never about your face. It was always about your heart. When you stop hiding from yourself, the world will begin to see you too." Nia took a deep breath and looked at Kofi. "I don't know what's next, but I know I have to walk this path. I have to live for me." And so Nia began the journey of self-discovery. knowing that true freedom came from within. The curse had not been her face. It had been her fear. And now, she was free. The morning sun bathed the village in golden light, and Nia walked among the villagers, no longer hidden behind the veil. But the whispers followed her, murmuring behind her back. Some eyes widened in shock, others were filled with curiosity, and a few were laced with judgment. Yet, none of these words could break the newfound courage she had within. She passed the elders sitting by the fire, their murmurs quieter now, as if they were unsure how to respond to her bravery. But one elder, Nana Titi, an old woman with eyes full of wisdom and stories, looked directly at her. "Why have you taken it off, Nia?" Nana Titi's voice was soft, yet it carried the weight of years of tradition. Nia stopped and turned to face her. "Because I want to see myself, Nana. Not just through the veil, but for who I truly am. I want to live freely, without fear." Nana Titi smiled faintly, her wrinkled hands tracing the patterns of the beads she wore around her neck. "You are not the first to remove the veil, Nia. But every one of us has to learn the truth of what lies behind it. You must be prepared for what the village will say." Nia nodded, determined. "I am ready, Nana." As the days passed, Nia felt the weight of the village's gaze even more acutely. Her family was torn. Her mother continued to plead with her to cover up, fearing that the curse would return with a vengeance, while her father remained silent, torn between his love for his daughter and his fear of the old ways. One afternoon, as Nia sat by the river, Kofi came to her again, his smile a quiet reassurance. "They will talk, Neo. That's what people do when they see someone who dares to live differently. But your freedom isn't meant for their approval. It's yours," Kofi said, sitting beside her on the cool stones by the water. "I thought I could live for them," Nia replied, her voice tinged with doubt. "But now I feel like I'm not just fighting the curse. I'm fighting my own family, my own beliefs." Kofi turned to her, his gaze steady. "And that's where the real battle begins. It's not against the curse, Nia. It's against the fear you've been taught to live with. If you win that, the rest will follow." Nia stared at the ripples in the river. Could she truly let go of the past? Could she live for herself, and not for what others expected her to be? That evening, her mother found her sitting alone, gazing at the stars. Her mother's face was strained, and her voice trembled with concern as she approached Nia. "You have brought shame upon our family, Nia." Her mother's voice was filled with sorrow. "The elders are already talking. The curse will come for us. You've removed the veil, but you've also removed the protection we've had for generations." Nia stood and faced her mother, her heart pounding. "I'm not afraid anymore, Mother. I'm not afraid of the curse, and I'm not afraid of what the villagers think. I want to live freely, to be myself. If that means facing their judgment, so be it." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "But you don't understand. You're my daughter. I've lived in fear of losing you, of seeing the curse destroy you. You have to put it back on." Nia took a deep breath, her voice firm. "I can't, Mother. I can't hide from myself anymore. I'm not the curse. I'm Nia, and I deserve to be loved, to live, to be seen." There was a long silence. Then slowly her mother stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Nia. "I don't understand, but I love you. And if this is the path you must walk, then I will walk with you." The next morning, Nia stood at the center of the village, her face uncovered and her heart open. She felt the weight of the village's gaze, but she also felt something else. The freedom that came with embracing who she truly was. Kofi stood beside her, his presence a quiet strength. The villagers watched, their whispers less frequent now, replaced by a sense of curiosity. Nia's mother and father stood in the background, their faces filled with a mixture of pride and uncertainty. But Nia wasn't afraid. This was her path, her choice. She had taken off the veil, not just for herself, but for the future, for the generations to come. As the sun rose higher, Nia felt a warmth spread through her. It was the warmth of acceptance, of living truthfully. This was just the beginning. The days after Nia revealed her face were full of mixed emotions. Some villagers began to approach her, speaking words of encouragement, while others, like her aunt, refused to look her in the eye, murmuring about the punishment that was sure to come. One evening, as Nia sat by the river, she felt a sudden chill. The air shifted, and the water in the river began to swirl. It wasn't the natural flow of the river. It felt wrong. She heard a voice, low, almost a whisper in the wind. Nia, you've broken the law of your ancestors. You will face the consequences of your defiance. Nia's heart raced, and she stood, looking around. There was no one there, just the trees and the water. But she could feel the presence of something ancient and powerful. It was the spirits of the river, the protectors of her people's traditions. She knew the stories well. They were not kind to those who broke the old ways. Kofi appeared beside her, sensing the tension in the air. What is it, Nia? I heard them, Kofi. The spirits. They've warned me. I've defied the laws of the ancestors. And now, the curse will come for me. Kofi looked at her, his expression serious. We can face it together. Whatever comes, we'll face it as one. The next day, Nia's mother came to her in distress, saying the villagers were gathering to discuss what to do about the curse. The elders had summoned Nia, her mother, and Kofi to the center of the village. They say you have broken tradition, Nia, her mother said, her voice full of fear. The spirits are angry, and now the village wants you to make amends. They want you to cover your face again. Nia clenched her fists. She could feel the weight of their words. But deep within her, she knew that covering her face again would mean losing herself. As the elders spoke, the tension in the air was thick. They spoke of rituals and customs, of appeasing the spirits. But Nia stood tall, her voice steady. I cannot live in fear. I cannot return to the veil. If that is the price I must pay, then so be it. Her mother's eyes were filled with tears. You are my daughter, and I love you. But if the spirits come for us, it will be on your head. That night, the sky darkened, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. A storm blew in, the winds howling like wolves. Nia stood at the river, the spirits' warnings echoing in her mind. She could feel the tension in the air, the pressure building. And then she saw them, figures emerging from the water, glowing faintly in the moonlight. They were the spirits of the ancestors, the protectors of tradition. Their faces shrouded in mist. They spoke in unison, their voices like thunder. You have broken the law of the ancestors, Nia. The curse cannot be undone. The price must be paid. Nia stood her ground. The price is my freedom. I will not live in fear anymore. If I am to face the consequences, I will do so on my terms. The spirits paused, their glowing forms flickering like candles in the wind. A long silence followed, and then a voice broke through the stillness. "You are brave, Nia. Bravery is what we seek. We will not punish you. But remember, you must carry the truth in your heart." The spirits vanished into the night, leaving Nia standing by the river, her heart heavy but unbroken. When Nia returned to the village, she felt different. The weight of the curse no longer loomed over her. She had faced the spirits, confronted her fears, and stood firm in her truth. The villagers watched her, their whispers now laced with awe and respect. Nia had broken the curse not through defiance, but through courage. Kofi stood by her side, his presence a quiet support. Nia smiled as the sun rose, casting its warm glow over the village. The curse had been broken, not by removing the veil, but by embracing her true self. And in that moment, Nia knew that her journey had only just begun. Days passed, and the village began to change. Nia walked through the streets with her head held high, no longer weighed down by the veil. The whispers had become softer, more respectful. People who had once avoided her now greeted her with nods of approval. The elders, though still cautious, had stopped speaking of the curse as though it were an undeniable fate. But not everyone accepted her newfound freedom. Aunt Kemi was one of the few who continued to voice her disapproval, her eyes narrowing whenever Nia walked past. "You've broken everything we've built, Nia," she said one evening. "The elders were right. The curse will return. You will see." Nia turned to her aunt, her face unflinching. "The curse is not my fate, Aunt. I choose my path just as you chose yours. You chose fear, and I chose freedom." Aunt Kemi remained silent, but her lips trembled as she turned away. Nia could feel the weight of the family's expectations pressing in on her, but this time she was resolute. With each day that passed, Nia felt more certain in her decision. She was no longer hiding from herself or from the world. The curse had no power over her because she refused to give it control. As the days turned to weeks, Nia's relationship with Kofi grew deeper. He had become a constant in her life, a quiet support in a world that still trembled with uncertainty. They spent hours talking by the river, learning from each other, sharing their hopes and dreams. Kofi's presence had become a balm to Nia's soul. One evening, as they sat beneath the stars, Nia felt her heart stir with emotions she had long buried. "Kofi," she said softly, her voice hesitant, "do you ever think of the future? Of what lies ahead for us?" Kofi smiled, his hand brushing against hers. "I think of it often, Neo. A future where you are free, where we can both live without the weight of the past. But I know that the path ahead won't be easy. We may face challenges, but I will stand with you, always." Nia's heart swelled with gratitude. She had never known love like this, unconditional, free of fear. She realized that love, true love, could never be cursed. It could never be bound by the past. "I'm ready for whatever comes, Kofi," she said, her voice filled with determination. "I'm ready to live fully, with you by my side." But as Nia embraced the future, a storm began to brew on the horizon. It started with small things. An old woman whispering in the market, an elder casting a long glance in her direction. Then, one night a messenger arrived with urgent news. "The spirits have returned," the messenger said, his face pale. "The curse has been stirred once more. The village is in turmoil. People are falling ill. Crops are withering, and animals are dying. They say it is because of your defiance, Nia. The curse has come for you and the village." Nia felt her heart drop. Fear surged within her, but she quickly stifled it. The curse had always thrived on fear, on the belief that it had power over them. She had faced the spirits before, and she could face them again. "I will go to the river," Nia said, her voice steady. "I will face the spirits once more. This time, I will not be afraid." Nia walked to the river, Kofi by her side. The village was silent, holding its collective breath. The sky above was thick with clouds, as though the earth itself was waiting for something. When they reached the river, the water seemed still, almost unnaturally calm. "Spirits of the river," Nia called out, her voice strong and clear. "I stand before you, not in fear, but in truth. I have defied the curse, and I will not hide behind fear any longer. If you come for me, then let it be, but I will not run. I will live my life, and I will face the consequences with courage." For a moment, there was nothing, just the stillness of the water. Then the spirits appeared, their forms glowing softly in the dark. They circled around Nia, their presence both intimidating and calming. "Nia," one spirit spoke, its voice echoing in the wind. "You have proven your courage. You have chosen your path, and it is one of strength. The curse was never meant to control you, but to test you. You have passed the test, Neo. You are free." Tears welled in Nia's eyes as the spirits faded into the mist. The weight she had carried for so long was lifted. The curse, which had once threatened to destroy her, was no more. Kofi stepped forward, taking her hand. "You did it, Nia. You freed us all." When Nia returned to the village, the atmosphere had shifted. The air felt lighter, the whispers less filled with fear. The villagers, once hesitant and skeptical, now greeted her with open arms. The curse that had haunted them for generations was no longer a threat. Nia had not only freed herself, but had broken the chains of fear that bound her people. Her family, too, had begun to heal. Her mother, who had once feared for Nia's safety, now stood beside her, proud of the strength her daughter had shown. Her father, who had been silent for so long, embraced her with a silent nod of approval. The village was changing, and Nia was at the heart of that change. As time passed, Nia and Kofi began to build a life together. They worked side by side, cultivating the land and helping the village thrive. Nia, no longer burdened by fear, became a leader in her own right. She taught the younger generations that they were not slaves to superstition, that their futures were theirs to shape. The story of Nia's bravery became a legend, passed down from generation to generation. It was no longer a story of a Kozet family, but of a woman who broke free from the past and lived her truth. Nia sat on the banks of the river one evening, looking out over the water. Kofi sat beside her, his hand resting gently on hers. They had come a long way from the days of fear and doubt. "The future is ours, Nia," Kofi said softly. "It's a new day, one we've created together." Nia smiled, her heart full of hope. "Yes, it is. And it's one that no curse can ever touch." As Nia looked to the horizon, she realized that her journey was just beginning. The curse had been broken, but her true legacy was in the freedom she had won. Not just for herself, but for her people, and for the generations yet to come. The veil was gone. The fear was gone. And with it, Nia had found the truest form of freedom. A life lived with courage, truth, and love. The end was only the beginning. Years had passed since Nia had removed her veil, since she had faced the spirits of the river and broken the curse that had haunted her family for generations. The village had flourished, and the people were no longer bound by superstition. But deep within, she knew that there would be one final test, one final challenge that would prove if she was truly free. It came one fateful evening when a new stranger arrived in the village. His presence was unsettling, and the moment he walked into the heart of the village, an unnatural stillness followed him. He was tall, his eyes cold, and he carried an aura of authority that made the villagers uneasy. Nia, sensing something was off, approached him. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. The stranger's eyes flickered over her, then softened. "I am a messenger," he replied, his voice low. "I come from the spirits of the river. They have sent me to remind you of your place." Nia's heart skipped a beat. It was the spirits again. But this time, it wasn't the same. There was no fear. "You don't control me," Nia said, stepping forward. "I faced the curse and lived without it. I will not be ruled by fear again." The stranger smiled, an eerie calmness in his demeanor. "You think you've broken free, but there are consequences for defying the laws of nature, for rejecting the curse. The river is still tied to you. The spirits haven't forgotten." The villagers gathered, whispering anxiously. The old fears began to resurface, but Nia stood her ground, her heart resolute. "If the spirits seek to test me again," Nia said, her voice echoing across the village square, "let them come. But I will not bow. Not to fear, not to curses. I have chosen my path, and no one can take that from me." The air around them grew thick, the breeze rising into a howling wind. The ground trembled beneath her feet. For a moment, Nia thought she might lose her footing, but she closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, grounding herself in the truth she had fought so hard to embrace. "I am Nia. I am not cursed, and I will not live in fear." As if in answer, the river before them roared, its waters rising and crashing against the banks. The spirits appeared, but this time they were not hostile. They did not come to punish or remind her of the curse. Instead, they watched in silence as Nia stood unwavering. The stranger stepped back, his form beginning to dissipate. The spirits' voices echoed in the air, soft but clear. "You have proven yourself, Nia, not by fighting the curse, but by choosing to live freely. You have broken the cycle of fear and submission that has bound your family for generations. You are free." The winds calmed, the river returned to its peaceful flow, and the stranger disappeared entirely. Nia opened her eyes to see the village watching her, their faces a mix of awe and newfound respect. In the days that followed, the village underwent a profound transformation. The curse was no longer a part of their story. The fear that had once held them captive was replaced by a sense of unity and purpose. Nia had led them not through force, but through courage. She had broken free from the past, and now her people could do the same. Nia and Kofi continued to work together, building a life founded on love and truth. They shared their story with the younger generations, teaching them that no curse, no matter how ancient, could keep them from living freely. Nia's name became a symbol of strength, not just in her village, but in the surrounding regions. She was no longer the girl who wore a veil, hiding from the world. She was Nia, the woman who broke the chains of fear and led her people to a future filled with hope. As she stood by the river one last time, Nia looked out at the horizon, a peaceful smile on her face. The curse had not been the enemy. It had been the fear. And now, that fear was gone. The legacy she left behind was one of courage, love, and the freedom to choose one's own path.